This episode elicited a very strong reaction from me, but not quite in the way that I'm sure Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat intended. So first off, warning, there are spoilers ahead because we have so much to discuss about the Six Thatchers. And I guess my opening statement would be, if only this episode of Sherlock was as inventive with its writing as it was visually. Yes, Sherlock continues to be a stylistic gem, very much seeming on the cutting edge, while at other times, and I emphasize at times, also still seeming like a classic mystery thriller featuring England's most famous detective. And it's that balance that they got so brilliantly right at the beginning of this show, which is what made it a sensation. But I think that the balance has been tipped in the direction of Mary. Mary has her thumb on the damn scale. And even in her death, she proves to be a major problem for the show. In fact, it's very similar to the havoc that Megan Draper wreaked on Mad Men, which interestingly enough was another wife character. Now, when I tweeted my displeasure with Mary last night after watching the episode, one of you wrote back and said, well, you have to at least appreciate that she is a strong female character and a real, adversary, or, someone who can legitimately give Sherlock a run for his money. Well, in the Sherlock verse, that's supposed to be Irene Adler. So, I read an interview with Gatiss and Moffat, and they were saying, we don't pretend to know better than Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And it's like, well, maybe now you don't, but for a couple of episodes now you have. Mary was never built up this way in the original stories, and I think we're beginning to see why. And I'd like to point out that I have no problem with a clever and lethal character who's also older and relatable. I think that's great, but that's not what I tune in to watch Sherlock for. And I think, and they said even that. They said, Gatiss and Moffat in their interview said, we know that it's supposed to be the Sherlock and Watson show. We're working our way back towards that. But how do they explain then the end of the episode when it seems that Mary's shadow will continue to lean heavily on the narrative? So yes, after the whole episode of my wishing she'd just go away, I did feel quite guilty when she sacrificed herself for Sherlock. I was like, oh, I've been hating on you for like an hour and 15 or an hour so far, Mary. And that was, well, at first I felt it was noble, but if you have time to jump in front of a bullet, I think you also have time to push or pull Sherlock out of the way, especially with her training, and also when she just had a baby, right? So I think this is quite obvious writing, my money is on Mary having been terminally ill or something. She was going to die anyway. So since she was already thinking of herself in a fatalistic sense, that was her solution, to just jump in front of the bullet. And so I think by the end of season 4, Sherlock and Watson will discover this and it will alleviate their guilt. Although I have to say, I don't think Sherlock's really guilty of anything. Because again, she didn't have to jump in front of the bullet. And as I saw some other people pointing out online last night, there were a bunch of police in the room, and yet nobody did anything when this woman pulled a gun. I think that, I think it's actually kind of mean to put it all on Sherlock. But we'll talk about what's clearly going on, obviously, with Watson as well in just a moment. But so I was feeling bad about it. I was like, okay, Mary, you went out nobly, and at least you're gone. But then when the DVD showed up at his house and it said "Miss Me" on it, I was like, yes, Moriarty time, finally, that'll have made this whole episode worth it. And then Mary came on screen and was like, it's me again. I was just like, yeah, I hate you. I really hate this character so much. She did have one great line on the show, though. I loved it when she was on the plane playing a loud American, and she was like, did you lose the son in the war? I thought that was really funny and was very clever. I thought she did a good job with the accent and with the delivery. But in the context of the show, and considering how unlikable she's been up until this point, it just felt to me very much like the actress Amanda Abbington instead of the character Mary. Like she was like, can you get, why don't people know how awesome I am? Or why aren't I as popular as Cumberbatch and Freeman? Can you guys give me a comedic scene so they can see how talented and how much versatility I have as an actress? I was like, stop auditioning for me. I never want to see you again. I'm sorry, I really hate the character. And if they want to create a cool female character, if they want to do a Black Widow show, that's awesome. Go do that somewhere else. Don't plunk it in the middle of Sherlock. I also have a problem that I think that the B storylines, the personal drama, have really overtaken the A storylines and the mysteries at this point, to almost where the mysteries seem like, you know, like, oh, do we have to? Oh, yeah, I guess this is a show called Sherlock. We have to have some mysteries. At many points, I honestly felt like I was watching the British Big Bang Theory, right? I mean, they really do fit quite well with Sheldon, Leonard, and Penny when you think about it. And also, we never could have guessed what the outcome was. We never could have guessed that the traitor was that secretary. And a great deal of fun when it comes to mysteries is being able to play along. Sherlock isn't the only one who loves the game. Now back to Watson and some more obvious writing. Clearly, as we can all tell, he's actually more upset with himself, not Sherlock, because of his infidelity with that woman on the bus, right? We don't know how far it went, but it seems to have gone certainly very far emotionally, and I think that's clearly what he feels guilty about. And the rest of the season is going to be him having to come to terms with that to some degree. But when he took that phone into the other room when he was supposed to be watching the baby, the newborn, I was getting some really strong Anthony Weiner vibes. I was just like, wow. And you know, it made Watson so unlikable that I wasn't quite sure what the point of it was on this show and with this character, right? I mean, he should feel guilty. I thought that was horrible. And I saw no reason for him to be unhappy in his marriage. I mean, except for the usual midlife crisis stuff, right? You know, and it was just, I don't know, it's very cliche and very dislikable. My favorite scenes of the episode were between Sherlock and Mycroft when they were talking. And I think maybe because Mycroft is all about getting things back on track, including this show. And of course, for those of you who don't know, he's played by one of the creators and the writers, one of the main writers, Mark Gatiss. But anyway, my favorite lines there were his reaction to the baby. He's like, it looks healthy. It's certainly a baby. That was great. But I also liked when Sherlock said, whatever government you're currently propping up. I like the brothers' sense of entitlement. And I think they back it up with results. So I think they're totally cool to have it. I also liked Mycroft's kitchen. I thought that was pretty awesome. I was like, that is a great kitchen, Mycroft. Your interior designer knows you very well. Also, with casting, I think the British TV needs to expand its circles. It's very much seeming like a private club, and that takes me out of the show. Like, for instance, the guy whose son was killed, I was like, oh, hey, I found Edith's long-lost husband who was supposed to disappear in Germany off of Downton Abbey. Or over on, when you know, the guy was revealed who was smashing the statues, I was like, he's from Mr. Selfridge. There's Harry Selfridge's, you know, bad business partner who's up to no good. And so I think, you know, they don't want this to seem like a theater company. And I'm sure there are lots of talented actors in the UK who could use a break instead of these other actors just kind of spinning their wheels. You're supposed to move forward into Doctor Strange and Hobbit films and Fargo, you know, just like Cumberbatch and Freeman are. Also, when they ran over to the MI6 building, I was like, is that still around? That exploded in Skyfall. I mean, that was just such an iconic scene. I mean, I guess I still have no problem seeing the White House after Independence Day, but I guess because I've never really seen the MI6 building prior to Skyfall, I just associate it with that sequence. And so I'm just like, I'm like, who rebuilt that? But as for the rest of the season, am I excited? Yes and no. I've spent too much time with the show not to want to see how it ends. But if Moriarty doesn't factor into this final season in a meaningful way, at least meaningful, I'd like major, but I'll take meaningful, I'm going to be really upset. Don't tease your audience to that degree. It's like, a lot of these mistakes I feel are like TV 101, and so many shows have made the same mistakes in the past. Like I said, you know, Megan Draper on Mad Men. It's weird to watch, especially considering how meta we are these days, and we're so good at reflecting on television shows and pulling them apart immediately. It's weird to see shows in that mindset make similar mistakes. But I really do think that this maybe should be the final season of Sherlock if they've run this far off course and this much out of ideas. And maybe they can revisit like in 10 years, but right now I'm not really feeling it. So I'm curious, what did you think of the episode? Do you agree with my theory about Mary being terminally ill and Watson why he's guilty? Did it remind you of the British Big Bang Theory at points? And you know, what do you think of the writing and the visuals, etc., and the casting? Just what are your thoughts on this first episode back? Thank you for discussing it with me, and you can check out some other episodes right now.